Welcome back, everybody, to season 2 of our Cinemacast podcast. You are watching this on our YouTube channel. Be sure to hit that like subscribe button down below. You're also watching this re-upload it to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/ArrowANT. You can also find us on social media over on Twitter or X, whichever you prefer to call it, at Mike CAWAN, and we are also on kick.com/Arrow Entertainment. Also, guys, if you would like to join our Discord server for updates and much more, link for that is right down below in the description section. You guys can click it if you're on Discord. Join the server today. Be a part of the fun. So, today's feature is a very subtle, interesting one. This movie is what I like to call a heavy metaphor. This movie is just so metaphorically speaking. This movie is called Mother, starring Jennifer Lawrence. And if you don't know who Jennifer Lawrence was, she was in those movies, The Hunger Games, and a few other movies as well. You know, I look at her as like one of those teenage based off book actresses and all. Somebody I never really got into watching. You know, I never thought I would enjoy or watch a movie with Jennifer Lawrence in it. But this movie begs to differ. And this movie is a hit or miss amongst the fans, amongst people, for so many reasons. Now, this movie, even though it has a 68% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, if anybody cares about that, like a 7 out of 10 average rating, it was mostly generally received positively from critics, who praised the director's direction and performances, particularly those of Lawrence and I think it's Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer's in this movie as well. This movie stars Jennifer Lawrence, Javier Bardem, Ed Harris, Michelle Pfeiffer, etc. Now, when I first heard about this movie coming out, it was almost described to me as like a subtle psychological horror film in a sense. But now when you read up on it and you look at it, it's considered an American fantasy drama. But I feel like there's horror elements within this movie that almost give it that feeling as this is sort of a horror movie in a sense, but not really too much of horror. But then again, how do you describe horror nowadays? You know, horror movies, there's even movies out there that are considered horror, but other people see them as like intense thrillers or dramas or whatever, I guess depending on the theme of the movie. And this movie's theme is very heavily influenced by Christianity or Catholicism or however you put it. That is basically the theme of this movie, which is a metaphor. And I don't even know how to pronounce the last name of the director. I'm not even going to attempt it and all. But the plot of this movie, and it's very subtle, but it's very metaphorically subtle. It is the plot of it is inspired by the Bible, it says. Heavily inspired by the Bible. And it follows a young woman whose tranquil life with her husband at their country home is disrupted by the arrival of a mysterious couple. Now, when I went into this movie, this movie is just a little over, around 2 hours, I want to say. It's around 2 hours long. Probably maybe just a little bit too longer than, I guess, what people would usually think of it as. But this is a movie I would feel is for a particular audience. This is like a work of art. That's what I see this movie as. It's like a work of art. This is a movie that you go into, and I know a lot of people who will look at a movie like this and say, oh, you got Jennifer Lawrence as an R-rated film. Is there any? I think there was some nudity, if I can remember. I can't quite remember, you know, but there is like some minor violent content to it. So this movie is definitely rated R. It's not a heavily emphasized R-rated movie. It's not heavily emphasized on the R rating of it. But when you get into this movie, now, it may bore a lot of people, because when you look at it, the pace that this movie goes, it's so easy to confuse people with what's going on, because there is so much that happens in this movie, and there's so much that changes constantly in this movie, and you're like, hold on, what the hell? What is this movie about anyway? But I'm just throwing it out there for you guys in case you want to check out this movie. This movie came out in 2017. Yes, I know it's 2024 and you guys are probably looking for more 2024 related movie, but there's so many movies out there to critique and for you guys to learn about. Especially if you have a particular taste in certain genres of movies. This movie in particular, I wouldn't put it as it. I mean, some people may. This is like a work of art. It's like almost a masterpiece for certain people who enjoy certain types of cinema out there. And of course, this was distributed by Paramount, of course, with some other production companies as well. But this movie has the theme of religion in it. And as I was stating, that the plot of the movie is inspired by the Bible. So that's all you need to know for now when you go into the movie. It's inspired by the Bible. So how inspired by the Bible is this film? It's just so very... I know I use the word metaphor a lot, but this movie is very subtle on its metaphor, emphasizing everything on the Bible. Well, I'll start out with a little bit of the plot for it, get you guys going with it, and then I'll explain a little bit more in detail. So the plot goes that in a burned out remains of a large house, him, who is portrayed by Javier Bardem, an acclaimed poet struggling with writer's block, places a crystal object on a pedestal in his study. And the building morphs into a beautiful home in an Edenic, Edenic landscape. Mother, who is portrayed by Jennifer Lawrence, the poet's wife and muse, awakens in her bed and wonders aloud where him is. While renovating the house, she occasionally visualizes a beating heart within the walls. One day, a stranger named Man, who is portrayed by Ed Harris, turns up at the house, claiming to be an orthopedic surgeon and asking for a room. That night, Man suffers from dry heaves and Mother observes his wound on his side. Man's wife, Woman, who is portrayed by Michelle Pfeiffer, arrives the next day. Mother is increasingly frustrated with her guest, but him begs her to let them stay, revealing that man is actually a fan of whose dying wish was to meet him. However, when Man and Woman accidentally shatter the crystal object, him becomes angry and boards up his study. Man and Woman's two sons arrive unexpectedly and fight over Man's will. Oldest son wounds his brother and then flees after having his head smashed against the glass by him, leaving a bloody gash in younger brother's head. Now, we'll stop there for a little bit, because you're probably wondering, okay, what the hell's going on here? What's with the character names? You got Mother, him, Man, Woman, youngest brother, oldest son, cub bearer, counselor, fool, idler, adulterer. There's like no names for any of these characters that I'm labeling out. Zealot, lingerer, herald, thief, pilferer, deputy. It's almost like these are like certain titles for people from like the Bible or something. I don't know. It's almost like they said carpenter or some shit, you know? But just the names alone is enough to confuse you. But then, like, reading off the plot to you, you're probably thinking, okay, what the hell is going on here? Well, like I said before, this movie heavily emphasizes the inspiration of the Bible. This movie, metaphorically, is told as a story from beginning to end, and then rebirth. So if you're somebody who reads the Bible, if you're somebody who goes to church, if you know the whole story, you know about Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden and the sins that are committed, and God throws Adam and Eve out into the world, you know, and life begins, and this person begets that and begets this or whatever. That's pretty much almost like how this is. Only right now, in this home, Adam and Eve are portrayed by him and mother, and they're living such a nice life in this house, which is considered their Garden of Eden. And then they allow Satan in there, you know, who's disguised as man and woman. So they let this sin in, and it begins to infect the relationship with him and mother. And then so many other people start showing up. So many other things start happening. So I'll get a little bit more into the plot. Now, if you guys don't mind any spoilers, stick around and listen up. Otherwise, if you do not want to be spoiled, if you want to see this movie for yourselves, turn off this podcast immediately. Go watch the movie and come back and listen. So him, man, and woman take this injured son to the hospital. Mother cleans up and notices strange damage to the house, including a fly, a frog, and blood that does not stop dripping. She follows the blood to a tank of heating oil hidden in the basement walls. Him informs Mother that younger brother has died. Mother and him are roused that night when dozens of people arrive unannounced to the house to mourn the dead son. The visitors behave in rude and presumptuous ways that irritate Mother, and she snaps and orders everyone to leave when they break the sink, partially flooding the house. She berates him for allowing so many people inside and ignoring her needs. But the argument leads to the passionate lovemaking. The next morning, Mother announces that she is pregnant, which she elates him and inspires him to start writing. And of course, this movie also takes place over a course of 9 months, you know, while Mother is pregnant. So there's so many things that you see happening that take a turn for the better in a positive way since the announcement of that. So it also says sometime later, Mother prepares for the child's arrival and reads him's beautiful new poem. Upon publication, it is acclaimed and sells very well. In celebration, Mother prepares a big dinner, but a group of fans interrupt. Mother tries to lock the doors, but droves of fans pours inside and begin to wreak havoc, damaging the house up. Him is oblivious, but a disoriented Mother watches helplessly as the military forces there turn up to battle members of the cult that have sprung up around him. His publicist organizes mass executions. Mother goes into labor, and him reopens the study so she can give birth inside. Now, there is a scene that takes place right after this, and it's very disturbing for a movie like this. It's very disturbing, which gives it a little bit of horror elements to it, and it's probably one of the most disturbing scenes that anybody would probably watch. Even though you don't see a whole lot, but you really feel for it. And you can find this scene right here on YouTube if you guys want to look it up. But so far with this movie, with all this happening, this is like the birth of somebody else, some new life, you know. And then all these people come in, and then all this stuff starts happening. All these people come in, they're ravaging, they're tearing up the place and stuff. There's like mini wars breaking out inside this house. And it's already too crowded. Like when you watch the movie, it feels so claustrophobic because you got so many people throughout the entire house, upstairs, downstairs, whatever. And there's just so much going on. Now, mind you, this next part I'm going to read up on. If it's something that's a little too heavy for you, skip ahead for another 2 minutes. But other than that, we're going to continue into it. So the next part of the movie is the havoc outside subsides. Him finds that the fans have left gifts and are waiting for the birth of the child. Him tells Mother that the fans want to see their newborn son. She asks why he won't make them leave, and he says he doesn't want them to. because at this point, these are his fans. He struggled so long to write something, to get something out there. He has writer block, and now he's got people who adore him for his work, and he does not want to disappoint. Basically, that's why. So she refuses to hand over the boy to him. Eventually, she falls asleep, and him takes the child outside into the crowd. At this point, she does wake up, and she takes notice to it, and the crowd begins passing the baby around wildly. They're basically, it's like crowd surfing. You ever been to a heavy metal concert and people are crowd surfing and shit? That's what they're doing. They're crowd surfing this baby around. And you even see the baby, you even see the baby peeing. You can see the urine flowing out. It's peeing while he's being crowd surfed through this crowd of monstrous idiots. And the baby is crying profusely. So they pass the baby around wildly until he is inadvertently killed. And you're watching this with disgust and horror, and she's trying to get the baby back, and she sees it being passed around, and he's crying until one of them snaps the baby's neck, and you see it. They snap the baby's neck, and within the next 30 seconds, she moves up to the table to grab the baby, and she's begging and pleading, and she finds that the baby has already been mutilated, and people in the crowd are eating its corpse. And furious, she just goes on a rant and just starts attacking people. They then turn on her and beat her savagely until him intervenes. He begs Mother to forgive them, but she runs down to the basement oil tank and ignites the oil, causing an explosion that incinerates the crowd and destroys the house. And then here's the ending, people. Him is unscathed by the inferno, but Mother is horrifically burned. She asks what he is, and he replies, "I am I," and Mother was home. He asks for her love, and when she agrees, he reaches into her chest and removes her heart, which he tears open to reveal a new crystal object. Places it on the pedestal, and the house is transformed back into a beautiful home. A new Mother appears in the bed and awakens, wondering aloud where him is. So, the metaphor of this movie, even though it is heavily inspired by the Bible, Mother is basically a metaphor for Mother Nature. Because look at how in life we treat the earth. Look at how we've been treating the earth for the last few thousand years, few hundred years. We have been terrible to this planet. We have been, as life evolves, as life evolves into something much more hideous and dangerous. Look at how we're destroying the world. Look at what we're doing to each other. We are killing Mother Nature with our gases and our factories and chopping down trees. Poisoning the waters, poisoning the oceans, dumping trash in the oceans and stuff like that. I know we got a bunch of humanitarians out there and shit that look out for the water systems and the rainforest and all that. But I say, with along with the Bible, this movie is, I can't help but say the word. It's a heavy metaphor, not just for excerpts from the Bible, but for how we describe Mother Nature and how she is being abused and raped. That's what this movie is all about. It's about the rape of Mother Nature that we take for granted. We take for granted this life, and we abuse it in so many ways. That is what this movie is about. Now, if I look into the themes of the movie, and they did an interview with Jennifer Lawrence, and in the interview she stated that the film is an allegory and depicts the rape and torment of Mother Nature, which is basically what I just said. I represent Mother Earth. Javier, whose character is a poet, represents a form of God, a creator. Michelle Pfeiffer is the Eve to Ed Harris's Adam. There's Cain and Abel, and the setting sometimes resembles the Garden of Eden, which is basically how I was describing it. Now the Adam and Eve portion, yeah, I got that a little off because it's been a while since I watched it. It has been. So yeah, Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer's roles are basically Adam and Eve, and they come into the Garden of Eden. You got Mother Nature, you got God, who's in his Garden of Eden, and you bring these two, and then of course, something happens to him. It's a heavy metaphor. It's basically what it is. And Jennifer Lawrence puts it together so well. And that's basically what it is. So you got the themes from the Bible, and they're very subtle in this movie. So if you go into this movie not knowing that, not doing any research of those themes or whatever, you're going to be lost. Because this movie it's very confusing to your standard, your typical moviegoer. It's very confusing. Unless you do some research, unless you've read up on this movie and okay, I know what I'm looking at, I know what I'm looking for, I can go into this movie, now let me see where the themes lie within. And that's what this movie is. It's considered a work of art, in a way. And this is something that I know probably a lot of Christians probably hate it. I think they do because of of the themes of how this movie depicts Christianity, depicts themes from the Bible and stuff. The director also said the exclamation mark in the title for Mother, as you see, reflects the spirit of the film, which ends with a big exclamation point. He discussed the film's unusual choice of not capitalizing the letter M in Mother during a Reddit interview, saying, to read out or to find out why there's a lowercase m, read the credits and look at the letter of the that is capitalized. Ask yourself, what's another name for this character? In the credits, the characters' names are all in lowercase except for him. That is that's a subtle thing. I never realized that. Now, like when I'm looking at the names on the Wikipedia of all the characters in the movie, and I see it. I really do see it. Every character there's no capital letters in their names. Like Mother, it's all lowercase. The only one that's uppercase is him. And then going back to what Jennifer Lawrence said about him, it represents God. God is a higher power. You never put anybody before God. This movie is very subtle with its theme, with everything that happens in this movie. It is very subtle. And like I said, this is something that not a lot of people will see it as. You'll probably say this was garbage. I did not like it. It was boring. It was confusing. I found it to be quite interesting myself. I really did. I found this movie to be quite interesting in a sense. And not a whole lot of movies come along that represent something like this. This is definitely something different. And I watched it a second time, I think, within the last couple years. And I know what to go into. I know what to look for. Like I said, there's that one harrowing scene that involves the baby. And I'm guessing maybe that represents the birth of Christ. I don't know. It could. Because after all, Jesus was born. He was the Son of God who was murdered by a bunch of angry Jews, who didn't believe that he had the power to heal people and perform miracles and stuff. And he was damned to death. And what they do, they crucified him. And I guess that's how I feel about the baby in this movie when you watch it. Like I said, you can look this stuff up on YouTube, or you can find the movie, you can watch it yourself and get a feel for it. But this is one of those movies, it's a rare occasion. It's one of those rare occasions where I'm sorry, you're going to have to really sit with an open mind and pay attention to this movie. You really got to pay close attention to it. This is not like some action movie or some comedy that you go into. You're like, oh yeah, that's funny, haha, or that was cool. this is something that you really need to go into with an open mind, and you really got to focus on it. But I would say before you watch the movie, or maybe you've seen this review for it, this podcast for it, now you know what to look forward to. This movie is a good one-time watch, unless you do fall in love with it and it becomes your favorite movie. It's definitely up there, probably within the top 30 oddly best movies of all time, I would say. This is definitely one for the books. I would give Mother, I want to say, for myself, because it's very rare to come across a movie that I could somewhat enjoy or get into. And as confusing as it is, I'm usually pretty good with sitting there and watching movies and paying attention to the theme of the movie, or to pay attention to the plot or anything at all. Just paying close attention to everything that's going on, including the story wise. It's somewhat of a rarity, but this is definitely, like I said, one for the books. If you want to check it out, try it out. I give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. Go see Mother today. See what I'm talking about. And that ends it for today's podcast, guys. Today's episode of Cinemacast. I would like to thank you guys for sitting through this whole entire review of the movie Mother. Thank you guys for joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below if you have yet to do so. If you are on Twitch and Kick and you want to follow us from when we stream, links all for that right down below, as well as our social media links. And if you guys want to join us on Discord, link for that is down below. You can hop in our servers at any time, guys. Also, today's stream is brought to you by Dubby Energy Blend, our sponsor. Our sponsor today. It's an energy blend that is sponsored by and advertised by gamers and streamers alike. It's fairly new. It's been out for the last 2 or 3 years. They got more than 10 different flavors on their website to choose from. It comes in powder form. They do have other accessories to go along with it as well. So if you guys decide you want to try out any other products, make sure you use promo code ARROW, WAN. You guys will save 10% on your purchase over there. Also, if you guys would like to check out our merch store, we have a link to our merch store right down below. If you would like to purchase anything, make sure you use coupon or promo code ARROWENT, and you guys will save 15% on that as well. Once again, guys, thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you right back here next time at the cinema.